Okay, I have my Fun Cub 1100 out here this morning. I had some issues with it last time I was out, and it seemed like my 10x3 prop was creating a lot of motor torque. So I wanted to put a 9x4 prop on it, but I didn't have one. So I had a 9x5. I put a 9x5 prop on it. I'm flying it with a 3S 1300 mAh, 30C Lipo, and let me see, it weighs 106 grams, so this thing's got very, very light wing loading at full throttle with this 9x5 prop on my 2212 1400 kV Racerstar motor. It pulls 18.9 amps. At 50% throttle, it was only pulling 7. So, and I usually cruise around about 50 to 60% throttle, so let's see if we can get it in the air. Now I launched that. I launched it with the 10x3 prop at about 50% throttle, and I gave it about 55% throttle that time on launch. It has great slow flight capability, especially with such light wing loading. I am going to have to put some flaps on this plane so I can fly it even more slowly, especially coming in for a landing. It should be a very good STOL aircraft once I get flaps put into it. And I don't know, I think I'll see how it flies with one of my 3S 2200 mAh batteries, because you know, planes always seem to have a weight at which they really, you know, they fly the best at. And this thing right now is so light with that little 1300 mAh LiPo. It's super light on the wings. Plenty of power. Hope I got that on the camera. It was pretty close to me. Plenty of power with that 9x5 prop. It's not quite as efficient as the 10x3. And I'm really surprised that the 10x3 seemed to producing a lot of torque. But it did. But tons of power on this plane with that 2214 motor. I was actually considering putting a 2216 in it, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. Great flying plane. I'm just, you know, getting more experience with it and trying to get it very tuned to the way I like to fly. Great handling plane. Uh-oh. I had a motor cut out there. My ESC getting flaky on me. I don't know if you guys could hear that or not because it's pretty quiet. But right after I completed that turn, I had a motor cut out. But this is a awesome flying Fun Cub. And that motor I've got in it is truly inexpensive. I think I've got, in this plane, I think I've got Racerstar, 12 gram digital metal gear servos, and they actually have 180-degree movement on them. I really like those servos for this size of plane. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Just cruising around with this. Such light wing loading. It just seems to float. I have a hard time getting out of the throttle as usual. Cool plane, huh? That's cruising around pretty. Oh, that's cruising around pretty slowly. For me, anyway. Okay, let's see if we can bring it in and land it. I'm kind of out of practice with this one. It's been a long time since I have flown this plane. There we go. Oh, into the berm. But yeah, that motor cutout worries me. I don't know if it's a ESC issue or a receiver issue. It's got a pretty inexpensive receiver in it, so I may change that receiver and bring it back out and see if I have the same issue. When I first started, all I could afford was, budget components, and sometimes that works out really well, and sometimes it bites you. So I don't think I'm going to skimp on receivers anymore. I hate to lose a plane because I wanted to save $15 or $20 on a receiver, So okay, I have the Volantex 750mm Wingspan P51D Mustang. It's been converted to a 3S power system. Has a 7x4 two-blade prop on it. Starting to get a little wind now. Let's try a wingtip launch with it. Alright, launching. Took off nicely. This thing flies so much better with a 3S power system than it ever did with that stock 2S power system. Big, huge loops, split S maneuvers. It's awesome. I really like the way this plane flies now. Stall turn. Not a bad stall turn for a P51. I think that red tail is just a great looking P51D Mustang. Great roll rate in both directions. See that? Awesome. I noticed that my videos always look a little hazy because we are still getting all that smoke from California. So it is hazy out here, and that's why the videos look hazy. I can't wait until winter. So we can get rid of all this smoke. Isn't that an awesome flying P51 though? And I think that's a pretty good stall turn for a P51. I've got a lot of rudder dialed into it. Pretty good power on 3S. And it's pretty efficient too. I just have a GNB 3S GNB 550 milliamp hour. And I'm trying to remember the C rating on it. I think it might be a 40C. I'll double check. But I have my timer set for 5 minutes, and when I land, I usually have about 3.8 volts left in the cell. So I would say the way I fly this plane, you can get 7 to 8 minutes of flight time on it with those little GMB. Woo! Whoa! I wonder if I stalled it there? That was weird. I must have stalled it there. Sure dipped the wing on me. Anyway, where was I? Oh, you could get 7 to 8 minutes of flight time, I think, leaving 3.6 volts per cell. Yeah, you don't want to go too slow coming out of a maneuver with it, that's for sure. And I think that's inherent in all P51s. I think when they stall, you will definitely get a wing drop on it. I almost messed up on that, didn't I? But I cruise around at about 60% throttle. I launch it at about 70% throttle. Okay, so let's see if we can bring it in. Without stalling it. Okay, let's see if we can get the P51D in the air again and not stall it this time. This plane comes in at least 2 different flavors that I know of. One is a ready to fly, which has a gyro in it, I believe. One comes as a plug-and fly, which is what I purchased. Doesn't have a gyro. I just have a standard receiver in it, as was evidenced by my pretty dramatic stall that I had. I don't have a gyro to correct my mistakes. I will try not to stall it this time. I was wrong about the battery. I had everything correct except for the C rating. It's actually an 80C Lipo, not a 40C Lipo, and it weighs approximately 55 grams. Okay, so let's launch. Yeah, I'll try not to stall it again. That was pretty iffy recovering from that one, wasn't it? Now, I'm going to post my updated setup file for this plane here in a few days for my 3S setup, and it's pretty aggressive on the amount of control surface movement. So for anybody out there that's going to use that setup file on a 3S setup, you might want to tone down the control surface movement for your maiden flight. But ton of power, huh? Ton of power. So I'm kind of surprised at how efficient it turned out to be with just a little 3S 550 milliamp hour 80C Lipo. And I had right at 3.8 volts per cell when I landed after the first flight, and I was not easy on it, was I? We're getting a little bit of wind now, so it's getting moved around a little bit. Yeah, I don't think that is a bad stall turn for a P51 at all. Very fast roll rate. So I have a lot of expo on my ailerons and on my elevator, because there's a lot of movement. Very fast roll rate. I may actually tone that down a little bit before I publish my setup file. Whee! That is one fun plane. How's that for a big loop? Wowee. That is fun. It's got some decent speed on it too. Just like a warbird should have. Hitting a little wind, hitting a little wind. Yeah, I think that's pretty good for stall turns. Now on the stall turns, I keep the speed up, I keep the throttle up on it, you know, I keep that prop spinning when I'm doing that, because if it stalls it will snap around on you. Wow, we are really getting some wind now. But look at that vertical climb. Sweet. I'm keeping a little altitude now because it's getting pushed by the wind pretty good. It's a pretty light plane even with the 3S Lipo in it. I don't know where that wind came from. It was pretty calm a minute ago. Well, during the first flight. Isn't that cool? I'm really liking this now. Now, my setup with the 3S, because I used a motor that didn't have the same bolt pattern as the stock motor, so I did have to modify my motor mount for this motor. Be aware of that. Alright, let's see if we can bring it in this crosswind. It's a pretty good crosswind now. It's blowing right across the road. Oh, hey, it stayed on its wheels that time instead of putting the tail up in the air. Man, what fun. Is that an awesome flying P51 or what? And I didn't even stall it that time, so that worked out pretty good. But yeah, I love flying this plane now. I just felt like on 2S it didn't have enough power, and it didn't have enough flight time either. I mean, you know, with that 1800 kV motor, it just seemed like it was pulling a lot more amps than it should have, probably because it had that, I think it had a 4-blade prop on it stock, and I think that motor on a 2S system, I think it was just over-propped on the stock setup. So now with a 3S setup, with a lower KV motor, with a 7x4 2-blade prop, it is an absolute beast in the air, man. I'm loving it. Alright, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the air.